Toronto Blue Jays manager John Schneider spoke out about the no-hitter that we witnessed last night. And let's preface it by saying congratulations to Ronel Blanco for a feat that we just don't really see very often. But the Blue Jays manager had some interesting things to say, so I'll break that down on this episode of Jays Digest, as well as a minor trade that went down and the appeal for Genesis Cabrera. The suspension has been revealed, so I'll have that and much more coming up next. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And yesterday's outcome was slightly predictable. Now, let me say this, okay? The Toronto Blue Jays were coming in against a team that had lost 4 games in a row to the New York Yankees on home field. Okay, so that's check mark number one. And they're a perennial World Series contender, so that doesn't help. The Astros winning yesterday's game was slightly predictable. Bowden Francis was making his first career start in the major leagues. It kind of went how we thought it would go, but the effort and just the overall way that it played itself out, in my opinion, was pathetic by the Toronto Blue Jays. It was totally pathetic to not muster up a hit against Ronel Blanco, who I believe was making his 8th career start in the big leagues. It was a disgraceful performance, and Bowden Francis, even though he didn't look good yesterday, was never given a chance to get acclimated to that game yesterday. So it's not his fault. The Blue Jays lineup was the one that was totally at fault for what we saw yesterday. But again, congratulations to Ronel Blanco. He was locked in from start to finish. Early walk to Springer, the late walk to Springer, that was it. Curtains for the Toronto Blue Jays after that. And he was just locked in. His changeup, his location, his velocity, everything looked good. Congrats to him. This is special. Hopefully, he can keep it going forward.
Yeah, and a lot to get into. Obviously, I covered it a little bit in yesterday's video, but we have a lot to discuss today as John Schneider spoke out on the no-hitter and had some interesting things to say. A quick reminder, hit the subscribe button before we get into it. But let's start. We also have some injury updates to go over as well. A few things before, or I guess ahead of tonight's game that is in a few hours. But Peter, we'll start with the speaks out and the injury updates as well. And this is what John Schneider had to say, and Sid Sixero tuned in a little bit here. But Peter kind of blew up a little bit on Twitter. He basically said, I think the no-hitter was an outlier. We're doing all right on where we hope to be in terms of what the offense is supposed to do. Tonight is one of those nights. And he basically wanted to say he's not something the Jays got no hit, 8th career start, or whatever. Essentially, people are upset that John Schneider said that the offense is right where they want to be, considering the fact that 2 out of the 3 or 3 out of the 5 games now, the offense has been very, very bad. We saw it in games 2 or 3 the last series, and then we saw it obviously yesterday. Again, you weren't there for the post game yesterday. So what are your thoughts on these comments by John Schneider saying that? I don't know what else he's going to say. I guess he could have called out his team this early, but I think he kind of just wants to move on from it. There's still 157 games left, so.
Yeah, well, it's definitely one of those games that you just forget about. You don't watch film because it's not going to do you any good. But at the same time, I want to ask John Schneider, is it really an outlier if it's happened 2 times in the past 2 years? The Jays were no hit last year by the Detroit Tigers. And in the 5th game of the season, they were no hit by Ronel Blanco, a virtually unknown starter who was a big question mark going into the season for the Houston Astros. So maybe there's something wrong with the team in that sense, where they let an unknown pitcher get a little bit too comfortable early on. They didn't take any pitches. They were swinging away on first pitches. And Bowden Francis, I touched on it in the intro, he had no chance to compete last night because you got to go through the meat of the order of the Houston Astros, which is very tough to do. It's Jose Altuve, it's Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman, and he held his own for the most part. But when you get outs of that type of leverage, when you get outs against those types of hitters, you need a breather in between innings. But the Blue Jays were going 3 up, 3 down. They were hacking away on first pitches, and they weren't giving him a chance to catch his breath. So, oh, hey, Bowden, good job getting through the top of the first. You just got rid of 4 of the most fearful hitters in baseball. Oh, yeah, go back out there. It's been a minute and a half. Go out there and get us 3 more outs. And then come back here and do the same thing a minute and a half later. What's he supposed to do in his first career start? What's any pitcher supposed to do being put in that situation against a lineup that potent? And again, full credit to the Houston Astros for getting this done. Ronel Blanco was locked in from innings 1 to 9. The Astros didn't even have anyone warming up in the bullpen. He was going to go the entire way, regardless of whether or not the Blue Jays got a hit or not. But still, full credit to them. They were still making nice defensive plays at the end, trying to preserve the no hitter. And it's always nice to see, as a baseball fan, to see a no hitter and something that should be historic, but Apparently, for the Blue Jays, or when you're pitching against the Blue Jays, it's not very historic because it's happened about 2 times in the span of 7 months here. So maybe you got to do a quick reality check. I know it's Game 5 of the season, John Schneider, but I don't know, not too encouraging if I'm at the helm. If I see my team just get no hit and have feeble at bats for better part of 2.5 hours yesterday.
Yeah, fired up a little bit. I mean, I tend to agree. Obviously, Bowden the team didn't do many favors. He also didn't do himself many favors either, giving up like 5 home runs. But I mean, ultimately, it was unfair for him to be at. I mean, he wasn't going to win that game regardless, no matter if he pitched a perfect game himself, most likely, because, I mean, huge shout out to the Astros, obviously, for that. But the Jays need to do better. John Schneider, I mean, I understand why he said this, 5th game of the season, but the offense, like I said, 3 to the 5 games, even excluding last year's no-hitter, 3 to the 5 games has been very, very bad. But we'll move on now because, I mean, we have a game tonight. A quick injury.
Well, one more thing, though. One more thing for me. Is the offense really where you want it to be? Because we've seen 3 really bad games so far from the Blue Jays, and we've seen 2 really good games in terms of offense. And I said this a few days ago, Nick. You got to be able to increase your floor if you're the Toronto Blue Jays. We've seen how good they can be if they're clicking and if they're firing on all cylinders. If the pitching is going well, if the defense is going well, if the lineup is putting together very competitive at-bats, you're going to get a 9-2 scoreline because the team is that talented. But when it's not clicking, when the other pitcher is locked in and he's having his way with you, how are you going to combat that if you're the Blue Jays? How do you raise your floor and elevate your ceiling as well? You got to find ways to constantly get better. And it's not a process that just happens from game 1 to 5 of the regular season. They're going to be searching for answers all year long. But you got to find a way to be more competitive in games where stuff just isn't going your way. And the Blue Jays haven't done that yet. Still early. I'm not pressing the panic button just yet. But still, the offense is not where they need it to be. And pretty much every component of this team is not where they need it to be in Game 5 of the season, but that's to be expected, and hopefully they can bounce back tonight with Gosse Berríos and a better effort from the lineup today.
Got to just turn the page. It's baseball. They play every single day. Quick update regarding the injuries. Romano's feeling better, Swanson's feeling better, and Danny Jansen and Alek Manoah are all feeling better. So, Peter, some very positive news there. Danny Jansen will be very welcome back, and I mean, the bullpen will be as well, but to be honest, not a single game we've played so far has been determined by the bullpen one way or the other, which is, I mean, I guess a good thing and a bad thing because their wins have been blowouts with their losses haven't been. And then Genesis Cabrera, 2-game suspension, down from 3, which realistically, when you look at it, he did pitch yesterday. He did very poorly in his pitching yesterday. He's really not going to miss any games because they probably weren't going to use him today or tomorrow anyway. So those are the injury updates, which is very good. Peter, I don't know if you have any quick thoughts on this. Danny Jansen can't come back soon enough, and the bullpen, again, hasn't really, not that we haven't been missing Romano and Swanson, these haven't really been any high leverage situation. No close games in the 5 games for the Jays.
Yeah, no close games, so I guess that's a silver lining that you could take out of this. And yesterday, Bowden did a good job of eating up those innings instead of turning it over to the bullpen and burning them for, I think, what's going to be a grueling next 2 games against the Houston Astros. I expect a much better effort tonight, but you have pretty much everyone available to you if you're John Schneider. You have Jimmy Garcia, who's fresh, Tim Meza as well, Chad Green. You have pretty much all your high leverage arms at your disposal, so that's good for the Blue Jays. And they're going to need them because they have 2 more games against the Astros and then 3 against the Yankees. Not going to be easy. So you gotta find ways to win. Again, if they go 5-5, they go 3-2 for the next 2 games, the next 5 games. Sorry, I think that's a very positive road trip to start the season. Sweep this one away. Don't talk about it anymore. It happened. You got no hit. Move on and try to win tonight. That's the most important thing. And getting those guys back will be massive. Just to help this team out. They need all hands on deck.
Yeah, I agree, and hopefully they can do that because yesterday was not a great watch if you're a Blue Jays fan, but baseball is back. And one quick thing before we do wrap up, they did make a move today, or yesterday, and again, it's not a major move, but, got to cover all the moves this time of year. So, Peter, they traded one of their prospects who, I don't know if we've covered him before. He wasn't really a super high, impact guy, 26 years old, but he was traded to the Twins, and this kind of just goes to show, if anything, the amount of depth the Blue Jays have in the minor leagues regarding their second and third base. Aravis Martinez, Addison Barger, all these guys. So they moved him, and he honestly wasn't even playing horribly. It's just they want to give those younger guys more reps in anticipation for them, whether they play this year or next year. I mean, you look at his stats. he had an okay season. Like he's been an okay hitter last year. He had a decent OPS there, but ultimately didn't not going to turn into anything. He's 26 years old, and the Jays have too many young guys, and the Twins are going to take a flyer on him. Just wanted to mention this in case any of you are fans of him. Peter, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. Just a matter of, I think the silver lining here is, or I guess the real reason behind this trade is just to give the young guys some more time.
No one better than cash considerations in a trade. That infamous baseball card that keeps circling around Twitter and whatever. I mean, pretty nothing trade for the Blue Jays. Doesn't impact the 40-man roster. Don't know what they're going to do. Don't know how much cash they got in return, but I mean, wish him all the best. Hopefully he can crack the big league roster because the Twins are dealing with some injuries right now
Yep.
to Royce Lewis. So who knows? You always hope that guys can make as much money as they can for as long as they can. So all the best to Tanner Morris, and hopefully he can crack the big league roster for the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, hopefully it's an opportunity because he actually played a lot of games last year for Buffalo AAA, so maybe he'll get his chance to get up there playing almost 100 games with the Bisons. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know what your thoughts are on all this. Hopefully the Jays can take care of business tonight. We said 5-5 over the first 3 series would be an ideal outcome given the current construction of the team, and I think that's still well within reach if they can go ahead and take care of business tonight. But if you want to check out a video from yesterday, click on your screen now, and we'll see you later.